to another episode of Search It Up with Sienna, the web series where I use IMDb to discover and talk about all different types of movies and TV shows, and how the people in front of and behind the camera not only make it all possible, but are somehow all interconnected. And on today's episode of Search It Up with Sienna, I'm going to be talking about A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, which was made in 2019. I also have a very special guest joining me today. His name is Daniel Krell, and he plays Mr. McFeely in the movie. And for those of you who haven't seen the movie or the TV show Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, Mr. McFeely is a fast-paced, fast-talking, speedy delivery man who's always in a hurry. And it was so amazing to talk to Daniel Krell because he's just such an amazing actor and he's so sweet, and it was just so fun to talk to him. So I can't wait for you to see that later in today's episode. I also had the opportunity to talk to David Newell, who was the original Mr. McFeely on the original Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood television series. Talk about your mind being blown. I talked to him about how he landed the role on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood and him interacting with Mr. Rogers every day for over 50 years. Later in this episode, I'm going to give you a little sneak peek of my interview with David Newell. But then, in a few days, I'm going to release a bonus episode of Search It Up with Sienna, where I have my full interview with David Newell. A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood is based on a true story of a real-life friendship that Mr. Rogers had with a troubled journalist named Lloyd Vogel. The movie also proves the point that Mr. Rogers is such a good person on and off camera. For those of you who haven't seen the TV show, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, this movie is still a great movie to watch. It stars Tom Hanks as Fred Rogers. It also stars Matthew Rhys as Lloyd Vogel, Chris Cooper as Lloyd's dad, Jerry Vogel, Susan Kelechi Watson as Lloyd's wife, Andrea, and Daniel Krell as Mr. McFeely. One of my favorite scenes in the movie is when Mr. Rogers is showing Lloyd his puppets. Now, Lloyd doesn't really care about these puppets and is kind of bothered by them, but Mr. Rogers is just trying to teach Lloyd a lesson. And one of the things I think is really cool about Mr. Rogers' puppets is because they each have different personalities and different strengths and fears. In each episode of his TV show, kids and adults learn different life lessons. Now, before you watch my interview with Daniel Krell, I'd like to tell you a little bit about him. Daniel Krell has performed in dozens of productions with Pittsburgh Public Theater, Pittsburgh CLO, City Theater, Quantum Theater, Front Porch Theatricals, and theaters around the country. He is also a veteran of many films, commercials, and voiceovers. Now, without further ado, Daniel Krell. What inspired you to become an actor?
Inspired me to become an actor. It's a funny, kind of embarrassing little story of when I was in high school. There was a very pretty girl, and she said, I'm going to audition for the school play. You should audition too. And I thought, yeah, I definitely should audition. I had no idea what the school play was. I had no interest in it. Didn't know what it was. And so I auditioned, and I was cast. It was as the Artful Dodger in Oliver, which was the most fun. It's such a great. And it ended up, funny enough, that she couldn't do it. She couldn't be in the play because it's conflicted with other things that she had going on. So there I was, cast in this play. I don't know what that meant even. And then we started working on it. And when we started working on it, I realized I love this. It was like nothing else ever before that I had experienced. I didn't necessarily, I had no idea then, like when people would say, what do you want to do? And I'd be kind of like, I don't know, I might do this, I might do that or something. Then after working on that and digging in, even on a high school play way on that level, something clicked, and I thought, yeah, this is where I want to put all my energy, all my time, everything. I think kind of the first time in my life, I really felt a sense of focus and purpose and something. You may feel the exact same way. Huh? It's just something about it. It's not like anything else.
Yeah, that's so interesting and funny.
Yeah,
I
isn't
mean,
that funny?
it's really a cool way, like, to see, like, there's a lot of stories where people are like, "Oh, like, I really wanna be an actress, like, I just wanna or an actor or actress just because it just came to me," but that's such a cool story because like, you just snapped into you, like, in high school, that's so cool.
Yeah, so many stories you hear that I've always wanted to. I was always a performer when I was younger, and I was always doing this, and I would get up and I would dance around, or all those stories. But mine was just kind of happenstance, and it found me. That's kind of almost the way I feel.
And it seems like you love acting, so can you talk a little bit about how you landed the role in It's a Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood?
Uh, there's really not much of a story there, unfortunately, except my agent called me. I went into the audition, and I auditioned, and I got the role. So that's pretty exciting.
Did you have, like,
Uh,
any callbacks or anything, or, like, was it just one audition?
yeah, no. So I went in, and the casting agent put me on tape and sent the tape out, and then for callbacks, the director Mariel Heller was there at the callbacks, and she was right away. You immediately had the sense that she was smart, capable, down to earth, easygoing, but knew what she wanted. All the perfect balance of all of those things is from the moment you looked her in the eye, and the way she looked at you could tell that she's working and she's on it and she's nice and fun and easygoing, but knows what she wants and how to do it.
Mr. Rogers is just such a legendary person. Did you watch Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood when you were, a kid?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. All those PBS shows, I love them, and it was kind of daunting to go in for a role that had grown up watching,
Mhm.
and not just to play with an actor that I had grown up watching, but to play a role that I had grown up watching. It was a
Yeah.
very strange thing. It was kind of fun with the audition and then doing it, and playing me being playing a guy who's playing a character.
Mhm.
So it's not just I'm playing this one character. I'm playing an actor playing a character.
When I was little, well, I don't know if you've heard of the show, but it's kind of like a twist on Mr. Rogers, but he's not in, it's like all his characters. It's called Daniel Tiger's Neighborhood.
Yep.
It's just like all it's like Daniel, which is his puppet and stuff. It's like all the characters, but they're like animated and it's like his world like little town comes to life. Yeah, I definitely knew it was based on Mr. Rogers because I've heard the name before, but I started watching Mr. Rogers before and I love the show. It's just so inspiring and both shows I love. But you were just saying that how it's so cool to play in something that you watched it when you were little. Um Mr. McFeely, he was such an iconic character in it. How did you prepare for the role that he already was known by so many people?
Um, well, there are a couple of levels of that, and one of the levels is just physical mannerisms and vocal mannerisms. So you to get the essence of the person. Um, and again, you have to remember. I had to remember that I'm playing this guy making choices about how this character should be played. So I had to kind of reverse engineer and go into what this guy is thinking about the guy that he's playing. You know, but like I said before, it was kind of a lot of pressure in the best way, in the most fun way of playing that icon, because if you get it wrong, oh boy, people are going to be disappointed. Like, oh,
Mhm.
that's not the Mr. McFeely I knew as a kid.
Mhm.
And because it's such a personal thing, people have
Yes.
such strong connections to that character from their childhood. So it's deep with what they
I
feel
totally
about this
agree.
guy. Yeah.
Yeah. Did you have any contact with David Newell, who played Mr. McFeely in the actual original show?
We had little contact. We we played a lot of phone tag, and we kept trying to get together. We were going to meet in person, and something happened, and I had to cancel, and something happened, and he had to postpone, and I had, and so we never actually met in person, but we did talk on the phone a little bit. And he was there on set when we were shooting, so that was nice. I got a little chance to chat with him there.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Did you have any favorite memories from filming the movie?
Um, yeah, I guess it's probably not a very original answer. I bet you a lot of people would say that it's working with Tom Hanks. I
Yeah.
mean, the guy can't be beat. I mean, he's just the best. He's just the best.
Yes, I mean, like, I had some previous guests on the show, which was Mercedes Rule, and I had Don Burgess recently too. And he's a cinematographer, and he's worked with Tom Hanks a lot. Mercedes Rule was in Big; she plays the mom, and she worked with Tom Hanks a lot. What was your experience like working with him? I mean, like, he sounds like you just said, so it was so unique.
Yeah. Um, when I found out that I got the role, and I would be playing in a scene opposite Tom Hanks, um, I I thought, oh, that's great. He's such a great guy. He's so great. Can't wait to be around him. And I thought, I think, I mean, everything I've heard, but I don't know him. I don't. What if he has us all fooled and he's really mean? You know. Um, but he absolutely the thing that was amazing is he actually lived up to his reputation. That bar is so high that the fact that he was able, you were able to say, wow, he really actually is that good of a human being, that good of an actor, that professional, that easygoing. Like Marielle, I think they had a lot of the same qualities. They're very focused, knew what he wanted, very strong, but very open, very friendly. Just he's 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 the actor that I would like to be. I keep that in mind all the time. That he was so easygoing and nice and focused and all of those things that I've said that I thought that's the ideal. That's what you want. That's what you want.
Yeah, I love Tom Hanks's work so much too. So, who do you think? I have a few answers. I have two answers here, but I'll let you answer first. Who do you think the hero in the movie is in your eyes?
Well, that's funny because there's actually a little scene in that movie where he asks him, the interviewer asks him.
Yeah. Do you consider yourself as a hero?
That's right. Yeah. So that's an interesting question. Um, you know, I mean, yes, obviously the obvious answer is Mr. Rogers. Um, but I think one of the really nice things about the film is the way it tells us that we can be the hero too. I think that's what one of the things that was so great about Mr. Rogers is that it wasn't about him being the hero. It was him helping you understand that you're a hero.
Yes.
So I think that's what the film does. So ironically, the people watching the movie are almost the hero of the movie in some way. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say definitely the same thing. I think that's a great answer. I wasn't actually thinking that, but then once you said that, I definitely think that now. I also was thinking Andrea a little bit maybe, Lloyd's wife, because she kind of helped him a little bit, like with his father and just being more of a nice person in life. So I thought maybe a little bit of her.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. The way she can help him uh, work through his pain and things that he's dealing with, and the way she can help him help himself. That's definitely a hero.
And I think maybe too that just came to my mind is definitely maybe his baby too, because all the scenes where it's just him and his baby before he starts to be a little bit nicer of a guy, he kind of seems calm and he seems like holding the baby just in the room. He just seems kind of calm and in his own space.
Yeah, yeah,
So
absolutely.
what do you think the lesson of the movie is?
The lesson of the movie. Well, I guess I would harken back to the fact that um, that we can be the best person that
Hmm.
we are. We already have it in us. We just have to be able to find it within us and then bring it out
Yeah.
because it's all there. All the good stuff, all the bad stuff is there too. I think that's one thing. That's why one of the reasons I love being an actor is you get to play every facet of the human existence. If it's a person's bad, a person's good, a person's courageous, if they're a coward, all of these things you get to play. And so I think all the good stuff is in there, as is the bad stuff. But being able to find that goodness within you, and bring it out, and share it with other people.
I totally agree. I think maybe another lesson too is that I think Lloyd learns, and I don't know if this is really a big recognizable lesson. I think it's something that I mean, Mr. Rogers teaches everybody everything. I mean, he even says in the thing that he thought that he taught everybody everything they need to know in the movie. He said that in the movie. But that's why he quit the show for a few years, and then he rebooted it because he realized he was going through stuff with his sons and he realized there was still more to tell and still more life lessons. Maybe I think some of it is what Mr. Rogers does. So he's such like that's why he's so nice and he's so calm because and patient because he does things. You have to find ways that make you get your anger out before you use it the wrong way, which I think Lloyd learns because he used even though inside like if even in the beginning of the movie deep inside I think he really wanted like his dad back and he really didn't want to be mad at him, but once he saw him he just kind of over exaggerated and let all the anger out that he's ever had that his because he's still just angry not even at his dad. I mean obviously a little bit, but also because his mom is dead and he loved his mom so much, so he wants her back, and that all that anger he just puts in there. And some of the things I know that Mr. Roger does is bang on the piano and do stuff
Right?
like that.
Yeah, yeah. The way, what do you do with the mad, that you feel? How do you get rid of it or take care of it or express it in ways that will not hurt other people?
Yeah, I think it's a big lesson throughout the movie because even that little bit where you see with Daniel and where the Mr. Skunk sprayed him and he just says I'm just so mad, and he just and but then they sing a song and he realizes how he can be calm.
Yeah, yeah.
Are there any projects that you're currently working on that you can share with me?
Most of them are top secret. Um, no, I just finished over the weekend. I've been doing, as you know, there's nothing's in production. There's no theater. I do a lot of stage acting, and live theater means that there are people brought together, hundreds or thousands or whatever number of people. That's not really happening much these days. So, but I've been doing some projects over Zoom, Crowdcast, and some other things. These theater companies have been pretty smart and resourceful about how to produce things without actually having a theater to go to a
Mhm.
theater. So my wife and I are podding together. She and I live in our house together, so we can be. She's an actress as well, and so we can be in scenes together, playing opposite each other, and we're in the same room. So this one that I just did, it closed on Sunday. Uh, the theater company got together groups of couples that were together in living together.
Mhm.
So that was a neat way to work around the whole problem of not being able to be in the same spaces.
That's so cool. Yeah, that sounds so fun too. So it's like a way to make everything work during this. And I know we're definitely getting through it and we're doing good with it. So
Yeah, yeah. It's an interesting uh, way to try to make the best of what you can, and hopefully, everything will come back, and we'll be back in business again. Hopefully, all of us, the audience and actors.
and I
Someday.
believe you said you were from Pittsburgh before. And I've never been to Pittsburgh, but what would be some of the things you would tell visitors from like a different country or like what or always wanted to go to Pittsburgh? What was the first thing that you'd show them?
Um, I love Pittsburgh. I just love this town. I'm from Pittsburgh. I was born and raised here, and I went a great way to grad school for a couple of years. I lived in New York for a while, um, but I came back to Pittsburgh because something about it just is. It's a great mix of. I often describe it as a small town in a larger city, or a larger city with a small town.
Hmm.
So it has the best of both worlds for me. A lot of it is the history of Pittsburgh. It was industrial. It was steel mills, and that's all that it was. And then people lived there because they worked in the steel mill. It was never meant to be a city.
Hmm.
It's just an industrial site, basically.
Yeah.
And it grew. It grew over the years into a city, and now all the industry, that steel industry, is gone, and the economy has turned around to other things, information sciences and medicine and research and things. And so people have this idea that Pittsburgh is this old school Rust Belt city, but it's come along quite a long way, but it still has that nice kind of earthiness.
Yes, I'd love to go there sometime. It sounds so cool. Do you have any advice for aspiring actors?
I do. I do. I have a very good one. It's not mine. It's not my original thought. I heard it once. We were doing a talk back, as we often do, and especially for schools if they come to a school matinee. Um, and afterwards, sometimes we'll go out, sit on the stage, and talk to the audience. And there was a group there, and the kid raised their hand. I don't know how old the kid was, and said, I want to be an actor when I grow up. Do you have any advice? And the director of the piece that we were working on said, learn everything you can, which I thought was the best possible answer. It wasn't, get an agent, move to New York, go become a movie star. It wasn't something. It was so smart. It was learn everything you can, because all of it can be applied to acting in every way possible.
Hmm.
The role I just played, closed on Sunday, I was a beekeeper. And so I learned, just kind of skimming over and reading about beekeeping, like, what does that mean? And this guy makes a living selling
Yeah.
honey.
Because
And
sometimes, yeah, because sometimes when you're like, say that you decide you want to become an actor and or an actress, and you were before that you were like a cashier or something at a supermarket, and then you may by some chance that casted as a role as a cashier. Well, then some of the reasons why you've either gotten cast is because well you have the experience, you know how to do that, you've got your acting, you're comfortable on camera, and then you know all about cash to how to what to do with a cashier. And that's what's so cool about movies is that's why it's so important to study for the roles, because and TV shows, because you can put stuff in life that you've learned into your acting and it makes it more real and natural.
absolutely, absolutely. If you study history, if you study politics, and geography, and religion, and you study math and science, and English and any languages, all of those things at some point can be called upon for you to use in your acting. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Well, thank you so much for joining me. You had so many interesting things to say, and it was such a pleasure to talk to you, and I learned so much.
absolutely. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Very good questions, by the way.
Thank you.
Honest. You bet.
Wow, wasn't that great? Didn't he have so many interesting things to say? Thank you so much, Mr. Krell. Now it's time for a quick little fun fact. Did you know that Joanne Rogers, Fred Rogers' wife in real life, and David Newell, who's the original Mr. McFeely, have cameos in the restaurant where Mr. Rogers and Lloyd are out to lunch, and Mr. Rogers tells Lloyd to think about the people who have loved him, and then it pans around the whole restaurant. That's the scene where they're in. And now I'd like to give a huge shout out to Marielle Heller, who's the director on A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. She did such a brilliant job. And now a recap on how we got to Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood today. We start with Greenhouse Academy with Benjamin Papik, who's also in Goosebumps with Jack Black, who's in Jumanji The Next Level with Dwayne Johnson, who's in Moana with Tamura Morrison, who's in Star Wars Revenge of the Sith with James Earl Jones, who's in Field of Dreams with Amy Madigan and Gabby Hoffman, who's in Uncle Buck with Anna Klumsky, who's in My Girl with Macaulay Culkin, who's in Home Alone with John Hurt, who's in Big with Tom Hanks, who's in Toy Story 4 with Kristen Schaal, who's in The Muppets with Chris Cooper. And that leads us to A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. And now, before we search it up, here's a quick sneak peek of my interview with David Newell.
And that's what Fred Rogers was doing for that age group, was telling them, helping them deal with everyday life and saying that's pretend and this is real. You know, that's why he came into the program and changed into a sweater. That was the reality part of the program. That was every day. Then the trolley would come in and he would say, let's pretend we're going to the neighborhood of make-believe where anything could happen. You know, that's where all the fantasy could happen. And then he brought the kids back at the end of the program to reality. So it was every program was a lesson in separating fantasy and reality for very young children.
Be sure to tune in to my bonus episode of Search It Up with Sienna, which is coming out in a few days. And now it's time to search it up. Let's see. Oh, Kelly Davis plays an assistant director in A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, and she's also in Outer Banks, which is one of my favorite TV shows right now. It's streaming on Netflix. Well, I guess that means I'm going to be talking about Outer Banks next time.